All right, everybody. Welcome back to Two Ball, Two Bowl. This is episode 7. I am Marshon Parker.
I'm Nathan Tomlin.
And I think it's going to be a pretty interesting episode today. We pay attention, obviously, to sports. We're sports fans before anything. And the hot topic right now is the topic that Austin Rivers brought up, I believe, originally on the Pat McAfee show, where
McAfee.
McAfee, what am I talking about? Thank you, sir. Where he mentioned that he could take 30 guys from the NBA put them into the NFL, and it's causing a fuss with everybody. I just seen, I don't know if you've seen it, Nathan, but the uh, Shannon Sharp was like on 10 talking about it today, and I thought that we thought it would make a good episode, and we did it under a different premise because, I don't know if he really meant it this way, but this is how he worded it, where he just said, "Hey, I could take 30 guys from the NBA and just put them in the NFL right now." That's ridiculous. I thought it more in terms of, we thought it more in terms of if you took these athletes and at 10 years old, they made a decision of saying, I'm going to be in the NFL. And that's my focus is to be in the NFL. How many of these guys could have actually been in the NFL? What positions would they have played? Things like that, and kind of going over what their backgrounds are, just to kind of show you what their overall athleticism is. Um, I personally believe I'm a football fan at heart. I love football players in terms of I've played a little bit, and I think there is a mentality that comes along with it. But everybody's kind of blowing it up like, oh, these guys are tough enough. And I think that people underestimate the toughness of basketball players just because they're trying to sell fouls by flopping, and because of the fact that they sit out games. I tend to think they sit out games because they have guaranteed contracts, and and if the day comes where NFL players have guaranteed contracts, and we've seen it last year where Deshaun Watson, he decided about, I don't know, about an hour or two before the game he wasn't going to play, and they had to inform the backup, an hour before the game, hey, you're starting. And why did he do that? And why was he able to do that? Because he's the one player in the NFL that has a guaranteed contract. So I think there's mitigating circumstances that make people judge basketball players in a way that may not be quite fair. So with that being said, we are going to go over our list. We both ended up obviously with the same number, 23 and 23. No pun intended. This is no Michael Jordan thing. It just happened to be 23 and 23. And we're going to go one by one, and we're going to just knock everybody off our list till we get to our honorable mentions. I will start off with in my mind, there's two guys that I think would be on anybody's list, and I'm pretty sure will definitely be on our list. And I'll start off with the first guy, and I'm going to go with LeBron James, who, I mean, I guess most publications have him about 6'8", 6'9". I'm going to give him 6'8" because I know typically, unless you're Kevin Durant, who wants to be listed as 6'10", when we all know he's about 7 feet 7'1", most guys are usually an inch or two taller on their bio than they actually are. So I say LeBron's probably about 6'8", about 270. If anybody knows his history, yes, he's one of the most prominent high school basketball players of all time, but he was actually a very highly recruited football player as well. As a matter of fact, that's how the relationship with him and Urban Meyer first began. Urban Meyer used to be a wide receiver coach for Notre Dame, and he was heavily recruiting LeBron James, who was an All American wide receiver in high school as well. Until I guess somebody finally pulled Urban Meyer to the side and said, "Hey, this kid's not playing football. He can go to the NBA right now. After his junior year of high school, football is not in his future." But I look at him, and I definitely wouldn't see a wide receiver on the next level. I would see more of a tight end, not a hands in the dirt tight end, but more of like your Travis Kelce tight end. We've talked about this before. Travis Kelce is tight end by definition of, I mean, by the position he was designated. In reality, what he is an oversized slot receiver.
Mm-hmm.
So LeBron James as um, a tight end that's not really like an inline blocker, not going to be in a hands in the dirt position, but more or less utilized in motion and things like that to kind of take advantage of his athleticism and space. I could see that. I could also see this. I could also see him as an edge rusher. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
his athleticism, the long arms, the length, the speed. the lateral quickness, things of that nature. I could see him definitely terrorizing quarterbacks as an edge rusher. So that's
Yeah.
the first guy on my list.
Yeah, I mean, I had him too, obviously. One of the, in his prime, I mean, even now, physically, he's unreal for a 39-year-old to be that athletic and the shape he's in is unreal. But when he was younger, there's no one more physically gifted
Yeah,
in any sport, than LeBron. Uh, I Same thing. I mean, I had tight end. I don't think he could have played edge rusher because of his height. I think he would lose the leverage battle a lot um, against the run. So I think you'd definitely be better utilize him on offense than on defense. Anyone that tall, I think, is and he's about as tall as I got on my list.
me too.
Um, there's a couple other guys that are close to his height that I had too. When I went through, I was kind of going roster by roster. I didn't like look at the rosters, but I kind of just went and said, okay, let's start here. So I started in the Eastern Conference, and one of the guys that's still playing in the postseason today, and I picked him because of toughness and just the energy he has and the way he plays is Josh Hart. So, he could be, to me, he could like a safety. I would think of him more as a defensive player, potentially linebacker if he gained enough weight, but I could see him really just playing like a strong safety and just laying hat, dude. I mean, the guy gets 9 rebounds a game as a six. Again, he's listed 6'5", 6'4", 6'5", and not a Charles Barkley sized,
Yeah,
you know, shorter forward. He's a guard.
yeah,
Let's be real. And he's out there. He was their backup power forward to Julius Randle to start the season. Um, in the most recent game with an Anunoby out and Mitchell Robinson out, he's playing the 4.
yeah.
I mean, the guy's 6, and he got like 15 rebounds the other game. But I had Josh Hart, who I don't know if you had him too, but
I do.
his was pure mentality.
Yeah,
Like he has the mental, and he had this one quote. I think it was a couple of years ago now, or earlier this year, or something. But they talked to him about if he was tired, like playing back to backs, and Thibodeau is known for playing his guys, 45 minutes.
mhm.
Right now they have the injuries; they kind of have to. But even the regular season, Josh Hart's the kind of guy that plays over 40 minutes a game, and he was like, "Look, I'm not tired. I have no reason to be tired. There are people out there that wake up at 6 a.m. and work 12-hour shifts. They're tired.
Yeah,
I get paid to play a game." And that mentality, man, if that doesn't scream football to you, I don't know what does. So I had Josh Hart.
I had him on the list, and a lot of these guys I had accolades or things of that nature written next to their name, their size, obviously, because that's a big factor involved in it. But for Josh Hart, it just said out of Maryland, great rebound at two guard. I mean, he rebounds. He's probably
Villanova.
yeah. I mean, the Villanova. There's definitely a mindset of the players that they recruit. Um, but I mean, I don't think it's going on a ledge to say he's the best rebounding two guard in the last 15 years.
On a consistent basis, absolutely. D Wade would have his games
Yeah,
when he wanted to. Um, Kobe had the one game 7 against the Celtics where he couldn't make a shot, but he grabbed like 20 rebounds.
yeah.
But on a consistent night in night out basis, the only guard that is even on that level or better is Westbrook in terms of rebounding. There's no better rebounding guard, in my opinion, in the last decade than Josh Hart, other than Westbrook.
Yeah.
And Westbrook had similar mentality, but had much more athleticism,
Yeah.
jumping athleticism anyway than Josh Hart.
All right. So that was that. See, that's what you call a perfect segue. But I'll say before, because I neglected to mention, just in case you guys are reviewing. This is only players who are on current rosters now.
Mm.
So we're not talking about, past players. It's guys who are on rosters now. But with that, I will segue to a guy you just mentioned who's on my list, Russell Westbrook.
Yeah.
Because as I said, Josh Hart, as we mentioned, is the best two-guard rebounder. Russell Westbrook is one of the best point guards when it comes to rebounding in the history of this game. 6'4", 200 pounds. He was a three-star basketball player coming out of LA, and he was a late bloomer. He was what you call a late bloomer. Even though he was drafted so high, he was more so known as a defensive player.
Mm.
And people looked at him as a guy that would be like an all defensive team guy, and then obviously developed into a guy who's a top 75 guy and a triple double machine. But I look at
Especially those really boring Ben Howland UCLA teams that
yes,
would score 45 points and win.
exactly, yeah,
But
yeah,
they played defense. You had to play defense if you were going to play for him.
you had
Yeah.
to. And there's another guy who played for him that's going to be on at least on my side of the equation later on. But yeah, I mean, I just look at him as far as his athleticism, his toughness, good size, 6'4", 200 pounds. Um, I mean, with his aggressiveness, I look at him as like a safety.
Hmm.
Um, you know,
Well, how loose he is with the ball, he can't be on offense.
he can't
You
be that.
know,
It's funny you said that because I kept thinking to myself, he's not playing offense, man. His hands are too bad. He's
a fumble Ruski waiting to happen. But I'll let him run around and hit you though.
exactly. And he's going to be a guy who he's going to stay on the field. I could see him being a guy
Gunner on special teams.
exactly be on special teams who wants to make plays on special teams. So I had Russell Westbrook.
All right, I'm gonna go. Like I said, I was going from Eastern Conference down, so you picked a couple Western Conference guys, so which is perfect. So the next guy I had is, and I think there's a common theme with a lot of these players, at least on my end, is defense and the way they play defense. He's older, so this definitely would have been when he was younger. But Pat Bev,
Mm.
dude, Pat Bev, lockdown corner, man. I mean, his footwork on defense to guard on the perimeter in defense, the footwork is very similar to a corner, in my opinion.
Hmm.
He's like 6'1", so he's not, oversized. He'd be a slightly taller corner.
Yeah.
Um, he has great footwork defensively, but he's a physical corner. So he'd be like a bigger corner, kind of like a Brandon Browner type of corner. Again, maybe not being that good, but he'd be in a corner that's going to bump and run, play press coverage. I don't know his straight line speed, so I don't know if he would have the speed to really necessarily do that.
Hmm.
So I guess you could put him at safety if his speed isn't there. But yeah, man, I'd Pat Bev again his work ethic,
Yeah.
because talk about another guy that the guy, dude, he still can't shoot, man. The guy's been in the NBA forever. I mean, they beg him to shoot, the other team, and he plays because of his defense and his hustle. And again, that perimeter defense, man, he's the kind of guy you hate when he's on the other team,
Yeah.
but you love him on your team.
Yeah.
He's an agitator. He's physical. He doesn't back down from anybody, but he's also, not anymore, but he was an elite defensive player.
Yeah.
Um, and so anyway, so I had Pat Bev.
That's a good one. And I think we talked about this before, but his high school stats were ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was like 37 points, I think.
they're probably all layups.
Well, they have to because he averaged 9. So let's say on those 9 steals, he had 8 breakaways. That's 16 points right there. But no, that's actually a good one. I didn't think about him. That's a very good one. Next on my list is Lou Dort.
Oh yeah.
So Lou Dort plays for OKC, and he is a shooting guard. He's 6'4", 220. He was a 5-star recruit. He's actually Canadian. I tell you
Mm-hmm.
this, that the Canada is quietly setting up a pretty good Olympic team.
Yeah.
But Lou Dort,
They're guard heavy though. They don't have a lot of bigs.
not a lot of bigs, but they've got, you figure what, R.J. Barrett, Lou Dort, uh,
Shea,
okay,
SGA,
yeah,
Dylan Brooks to annoy
but
you.
exactly, right, the agitator, right? But I mean, I look at his size, 6'4", 220. Common theme here, defensive guy. He's going to he can actually guard in the post as well. Uh,
Hmm.
even though he's not that tall, he's built sturdy. I mean, he it says 220. He looks bigger than 220 to me. I don't know, but with that size, I look at him, and well, again, this is kind of going along with what we're saying here with some of these guys. I would see him as a defensive player.
Hmm.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe in a 4-3 defense, maybe he's a weak side linebacker. Who knows?
That's
Some of these Tampa twos, heck, he might be able to gain a little weight and be a middle linebacker. I don't
hmm
know some of these Tampa twos, but I just see him roaming the field, making plays.
yeah,
And yeah. So I have Lou Dort.
yeah. Linebacker. I had him for linebacker too. And the thing is too with basketball players, you have to realize, right? Their normal weight, if they stop playing basketball for a month, they gain 20 pounds
Yeah.
because look. I grew up in Southern California, huge Laker fan, and I remember Kobe would always get mad at Shaq because Shaq would come in overweight, but
Yeah.
he knew he could because the playoffs all that mattered.
Yeah.
The first couple months of the season, Shaq wasn't Shaq. He wasn't dominant yet because he came in probably pressing 370, 380,
Yeah.
like straight up, and then he'd get down to his playing weight, which was, they said like 300. There's no
No.
way he weighed less than 300 pounds. But he got down and you could tell the difference. Look at Luca, right? This year was different because they played international this summer.
Yeah.
But the years prior where he didn't play international, he comes in and he's a little chunky.
Yeah.
And then by the playoffs, he's fit. And so I think, to your point, I think he would gain another 20, 30 pounds and be around 6'4", 250. And he could be a weak side linebacker or middle linebacker. Again, with his perimeter defense and his footwork, the shuttle, you know, I, where do you want him?
Yeah.
As a linebacker. But I had Lou Dort too. I mean, that dude was a stud. He is, and Patrick Mahomes even said, he actually had him as a safety, but Patrick Mahomes said he could go play strong safety
Yeah.
uh, uh, when he went to the game and watched him up close. My next guy, again, he's a little bit older. Jay Crowder.
Oh.
Jay Crowder's another guy. First of all, he's one of those dudes. Um, you you don't want to meet, man. You don't want to mess with him. Like that dude, he looks like he's a defensive end, right? He almost, honestly, his body, he looks like Julius Peppers. I mean, not face wise, but his body is like reminds me of Julius Peppers. Um, and I'd put him at defensive end, and he's a tough physical. He's very strong. Um, he's got that attitude. Um, again, the hands I don't think are good enough to potentially put him at a tight end. If he was tight end, he'd be a hand in the dirt tight end like a Mercedes Lewis.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jay Crowder, man, tough physical guy. He's 6'6". I think he's listed at about 230. But again, I don't see that guy weighing 230. I see him. That dude is built.
Yeah.
Especially for a basketball player, he's put together pretty solid. So yeah, Jay Crowder.
And that's a good one. And I'll tell you the next guy I'm going to come up with. It's, to me, this list, kind of the first two names I thought about was LeBron James, and then the next guy I'm going to mention. And even the premise of this conversation, which is like, hey, if they were 10 years old and they had a focus on making it to the NFL, who would it be? And this is the very definition of that, which is Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards, 6'4", 225. I mean, he's displaying the athleticism right now. And I love Anthony. I really believe
Healthy.
Anthony Edwards believes that I think he really believes that if you gave him a month, he could pitch in a Major League Baseball game. Like that guy thinks he can do anything when it comes to athletics. And digging in his history, he was a great Pop Warner running back, quarterback, and cornerback. And when I say a really good one, he was like one of the best 10-year-olds in the nation, apparently, in Pop Warner. And then decided that he wanted to play basketball because I think the same reason that most of these guys do is it's a cooler looking sport. I mean, you get to wear a jersey, your face is exposed, the girls can see you. You're not one
Easier to play by yourself too.
easier to play by yourself, and it's more of a glamorous sport. And look at, I mean, the guaranteed contracts and things of that nature. I'm sure it doesn't hurt. Um, but I look at him and I mean, geez, I mean, I look at a lot of different positions he could have played.
Mm-hmm.
He could have been a receiver. Um, I mean, heck, could he have been like a Derrick Henry type running back? I don't know, linebacker. Although I don't know, it's just something about him that seems, even though linebackers are cool, he just seems too cool to be a linebacker. It seems like he might have been like an oversized safety or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I don't know, maybe
Wide receiver, man.
maybe even a kick returner. I don't know. But
Uh,
so, but definitely Anthony Edwards, and I'm sure he was on your list as well.
Absolutely, I had him as wide receiver. The guy could jump out of a building.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, he's Calvin Johnson
Calvin Johnson 2.0, right?
style, but probably the higher vertical. I don't know. I'd have to, get the tape on that. But built like Calvin Johnson, you know. So that's what I thought of when I thought of Anthony Edwards. And yes, absolutely, I had him on there. You have to. The guy's there are some guys that you see, and you're just like, whatever he wanted to do athletically, he could do.
Yes.
And Anthony Edwards was one of those guys. I do feel like he could pick up a baseball, and he would naturally be better at it than most people.
Yeah.
Now pitching the MLB, I don't, no, but if he would have decided to go the baseball route, he probably would have been a baseball player and would have been a good one. He just has that. There's just that about him. There's just the athleticism. He could just do whatever he wanted, kind of like a Bo Jackson type of athlete. Just Bo Jackson could have done whatever he wanted,
Yeah.
and he did.
Yeah.
Bo Jackson wanted to do basketball. He could have played basketball too. Yeah, I definitely had Anthony Edwards, on my list. And I've said it before. I feel like at least the U.S. athletes, the best athletes in terms of athleticism, play basketball.
Yes.
So, with that being said, I do think that more basketball players could play other sports. Also, the height. There's not a lot of football players over 6'6", and the ones that are, the only ones I can think of are offensive tackles, and they'd have to lose a bunch of weight,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't really have their athletic ability is a different type of athletic ability than what you put on a basketball court. So when you're 6'2", 6'3", there's a lot of guys that size,
Mm-hmm.
and so to play basketball and be elite in basketball at that height, you have to really separate yourself. Whereas football, most of the guys that play football are between 6 foot and 6'4",
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, there are exceptions, of course, but most guys, and there's 50 some odd guys on a team versus 15 if you're including the two-way contract. So, yeah, and Edwards again going back east, and for him, his best friend was one of my favorite players of all time, Demaryius Thomas, Jimmy Butler. Again, I think Jimmy Butler, again, he has that mentality. He's not the most Jimmy Butler is an anomaly when it comes to basketball. He's not the most athletic. He's not the best shooter. He's not the best at anything except for probably he's going to work harder than you.
Yeah.
And he has that attitude, that rough edge attitude to him. But I think Jimmy Butler, and you could put him probably at wide receiver, and he's about it. Again, I think he's listed at 6'7".
Yeah.
So we're getting to the higher end. At 6'7", you're limited in your positions. But I think he could play a wide receiver. Again, I don't think he's the fastest guy, but I think he would be a superior route runner. He seems like kind of guy, again, that work ethic he has. He's gonna run a route better than you.
Mm-hmm.
He's gonna run a route better than you can cover him. He's gonna find a way to get open. But and then again, just the toughness running over the middle, and then the height on the outside. Yeah, so I had Jimmy Butler.
That's a good one. So far you've had a few that weren't on my list. I'm intrigued. The Jay Crowder one I'm really intrigued by. That was a real good one. So my next one I'll tell you is I'm sure is on your list, but I wonder what position you had him at. So I have Zion Williamson.
Mm-hmm.
I see Zion Williamson and I see a left tackle. Because the way and then most people will hear me say that and they say, "Oh, that's crazy. He's too athletic." Blah blah blah. I look at the elite left tackle. So like Trent Williams, as huge as he is an absolute athlete.
Mm-hmm.
Lane Johnson was a high school quarterback. He is an amazing athlete. Terrence Armstead for the Saints, I think he ran a 4.7 in the combine at his size. One of the most grossly underrated things when it comes to football is people's perception of how athletic these left tackles are. These are huge men who have great feet, great hands.
Linemen in general.
Linemen in general. Well, of course you would say that, right?
No, man, guards pull constantly.
It is absolutely true, but
they're quick for that size.
You're having to defend your quarterback
on an island.
Attack of some very large, athletic, aggressive grown men. And I see Zion Williamson with his athleticism, with his size. Hey, buddy, you come over and play football. You don't have to be 250, 260, 270 pounds. They will allow you to eat more. You can do that, man. You could do that,
Eat those hamburgers. You don't got to jump, too. You won't have the knee problems.
Not at all. He's 6'6". They have him listed as about 250, 260. There's no way he's that. He's probably around 3. And so you figure that'd be he would be an awesome left tackle. So that the guy on my list.
Next I had him too. I had him as either offense or defensive tackle. I think him as an interior defensive tackle would be pretty scary too, because he does have that kind of reckless attitude to him as well.
Yeah,
that ferocity that he drives to the basket with, which is why you understand why New Orleans took him first. You understand why Max extended him, even though he's missed so many games. When he's on the court, he's absolutely unstoppable.
Yes,
the man is he's LeBron James with an extra 50 pounds. And he's not as skilled. Don't get me wrong, but in terms of him coming at, you're not stopping him when he gets downhill. And if you're going to stand in front of him and take a charge, God bless you, because you're going to be hurting.
LeBron took a charge, and I thought LeBron was going
to playing. Yeah, I thought it broke him in half, dude. And LeBron is a brick wall too.
Yeah.
But I could see Zion as a defensive tackle too. I mean, that height would be kind of difficult because again, you lose a lot of the leverage, especially the interior linemen tend to be more around 6 foot, 6'1". Mm-hmm. And they have lower centers of gravity. But yeah, I had Zion. All right, my next guy also still playing right now. I'm in the Western Conference now. I had most of the guys were in the Western Conference. I'm sorry. I had one more in the Eastern Conference, so I'll go with him. This guy was recruited as a quarterback to Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama. He was the only person up to this point, I think, still to be Mr. Basketball and Mr. Football in the state of Minnesota. Yep. That's Jalen Suggs.
Yeah.
So, if you get recruited by pretty much the top if Ohio State, Alabama, and Georgia are recruiting you to play quarterback, so is everybody else.
Oh yeah.
In the last 5 years anyway, and Alabama longer, and Ohio State a little bit longer too. I mean, come on, that's a no-brainer at that point. That the fact that he was that good and he could have gone and played quarterback, and we know if you play quarterback at Ohio State or Alabama or even Georgia, I mean, at this point, you're making the NFL.
Yeah.
I mean, you are a top. You'll put up better numbers at Ohio State, Alabama next, and then Georgia because of how they play offenses. But Carson Beck's projected to be a top 5 pick. Alabama, every quarterback they've had in the last 10 years has been drafted. Ohio State, same thing.
Yeah.
So Jalen Suggs.
Oh yeah, I had him. I actually used to I can't remember what the show was called, but there was a show with him where they followed him in his football games, his basketball games, and he was a smooth athlete. I mean, obviously in both, but um, I was a little disappointed when he chose Gonzaga because I said, okay, if he's going to Gonzaga, that means he's sticking strictly to basketball. I was hoping that he would go to a school where he could kind of try both
Mm-hmm.
because he really was a really good football player. But I can't blame him. I can't blame him, man. Go where the guaranteed contracts are, man. At the end of the day, yeah, sports is fun and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, it's about business. It's
Yeah,
about business.
generational wealth, man.
Yeah,
Number 4 pick in the NBA.
yeah,
You got
yeah.
you got more money than you'll ever see. Most people see in their lives.
Oh yeah. Let's see. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And so we're 10 down. We'll go another 10, and then we'll have our honorable mentions. So next, I had so this guy is, again, the rules are be on a current roster. He is on a current roster. Was probably known more for his college days, and probably more known for his physique. He stands out as opposed to what he's actually done on the NBA court so far. But Kenneth Lofton Jr. So
Mm-hmm.
Kenneth Lofton Jr. played college basketball at Louisiana Tech. Um, he was originally, I think, drafted in the second round by the Memphis Grizzlies. He's a Texas kid, so I'm kind of surprised that coaches out there didn't get a hold of him. 6'6", they have him listed as 275. There is no way if he's 275, I'm 6 feet tall. He is no way he's 275. But what he is he's an old school post player, which means
Nimble.
great nimble feet, right? And I look at that guy and I'm like, that's my tackle, right? I don't know, for some reason I see more right tackle, but
Mm-hmm.
nonetheless I look at him and I see a tackle.
Probably because he's left-handed.
Yeah, 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 he sure is, right?
So
Yeah,
that might be why you think he's
maybe,
goes on the right side.
right? But I look at him and I just say, hey, that is the right tackle right there. That's our guy.
Yeah, I mean, I had him too. So far, everyone you've named, man, has been on my list too, and same thing. The agility, the footwork that he has, and he's not super. I mean, if you look at him and you compare him to an offensive tackle size,
Hmm.
if you actually said what he weighed,
Yeah.
man, I mean, he's there. He may not have the muscle mass of some of the offensive tackles. They don't lift the same in basketball.
Hmm.
You work different muscles and whatnot. Um, but that's just hitting the weight room and getting that. But yeah, his body is there.
Oh yeah.
Um, next guy I want to go to is like I said, he's still playing in the playoffs right now.
Hmm.
The guy is he's a he to me would be a Jimmy Graham, Antonio Gates tight end, Aaron Gordon.
Yeah.
Guy I mean, the guy he should have won the dunk contest, which was one of the best dunk contests in the last 10 years because most of them sucked. That one with him and Zach LaVine was phenomenal. The guy can jump out of a building. He's rough. He's tough. He's
Hmm.
a great rebounder. He can catch ball in traffic. He does a great job catching passes from Jokic. He's got good hands. and tell me he doesn't spit Jimmy Graham to you.
He does.
Like he spit. That's Jimmy Graham. If Jimmy Graham played basketball, man, except dreads instead of that the bleached gingerish blondish hair. I don't even know what color Jimmy Graham's hair was, but 100%, man. Aaron Gordon, line him up right now. You give me a good quarterback, line him up at tight end. I'm
Oh,
taking him. I'm drafting him. Fantasy draft, top 5 tight end right now.
oh yeah. No, so he was on my list. They have him listed at 6'8", 235. I can see the 6'8". He looks way bigger than 235.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
but I'll tell you what's interesting about him. So he's from San Jose, California. And the scenario we're talking about right now, his dad was a college basketball player
Mm-hmm.
and didn't get drafted in the NBA and went and tried out for the New England Patriots as a tight end. Now, he didn't make the roster, but I just thought that was an interesting little tidbit. And then Aaron Gordon also, he was a a two-sport athlete in high school. Obviously, he was a five-star basketball player, but he was also
Top 5 pick.
yeah, but he was also a really good he was a thrower for the track team. So
Mm-hmm.
overall athlete, and yeah, I couldn't have said any better. Yeah, Jimmy Graham, but actually bigger than Jimmy Graham, you know.
Oh yeah.
So I think so far we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
12.
8, 9, 10, 11. Yep. All right. So now, um, next guy on my list, Texas kid, was a Texas kid. Um, 6'4", 220, Marcus Smart. You know, again,
OK State.
yeah, and defensive guy. You know, he's getting older now. Body's getting beat up from taking all those charges and stuff. But I look at him. I mean, he's one of the thicker like basketball players in terms of like he looks like a football player playing basketball.
Mm-hmm.
220 from Texas, 5-star athlete, played youth football. But kind of like Ant, I'm sure made the turn to stick strictly to basketball. But I look at that guy and I was like, I see a linebacker, maybe a rover, uh, another guy who probably would be a wall breaker on special teams. He'd be a gunner. He'd be looking to just kind of put his head down and hurt some people. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, Marcus Smart.
And Marcus Smart too. Absolutely. Yeah. Again, perimeter defensive players. He's going to play in the defensive backfield. If he could gain enough weight, he may play weak side linebacker,
Yeah,
especially in today's NFL. But yeah, he's got the right attitude. He's tough, physical. Yeah, it's a good athlete. Absolutely. Man, so we're getting down to the nitty gritty. So I got to decide who I want to go with, who I'm going to leave off as honorable mention here. I'm going to go. All right, so I'm going to go. I'm going to go to a guy that is an agitator. Bugs the heck out of me, man. I can't stand the guy, but I got to put him on this list. It's Dylan Brooks. Like Dylan Brooks to me, he comes off as a weak side linebacker to me. Just that he's real physical. He likes to kind of get in the mix a little bit, but he's not quite big enough to be a middle linebacker. Although he might be able to put on the weight because he's pretty thick.
yeah,
He's definitely a defensive player because if his offense in football is anything like his offense in basketball, that dude can keep that at home. But again, he's got that attitude. He'd get after you a little bit. He'd come on some blitzes sometimes, but he's agile enough, good footwork to drop into coverage. Yeah, I had Dylan Brooks.
that's a good one. That's actually a very good one. What was yeah? Was how tall is he?
I think he's listed 6'5", 6'5", 6'6",
Yeah, no,
something like that.
that works. Yeah, I don't know why I
I'll
had him
have to look.
taller in my
He's
head.
not no because when he was guarding LeBron, he was noticeably shorter.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
whether LeBron is 6'8" or 6'9", I mean he's a good 3 inches shorter than LeBron, at least I think. Again, what he's listed at may be something different, um, but maybe 6'6" at the tallest,
Yeah.
but I don't feel like he's even that tall, to be honest.
So the next couple guys on my list, I'm going to knock out some defensive ends here. Um, yeah, I'll go with the more notable of the two basketball players first. Kawhi Leonard.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, so the when you look at Kawhi Leonard, first of all, he's 6'7", 225. Another guy that I mean, he looks way bigger than 225.
Nah, his core, he's
Yeah,
all arms, bro. His chest is
yeah.
is not thick,
Well, in the thing
and he's got scrawny legs.
they say Kawhi is like pound for pound one of the strongest players in the
Oh
NBA.
yeah.
I mean that guy and his hands are
Mm,
bigger than Shaq's hands.
yeah.
Long arms, big hands, extremely strong. I look at him. He's lost some of his athleticism with all of the lower limb injuries. Um, but I mean, I look at all his attributes, and you talk about somebody who could rush the pass and basically set an edge. He with those hands, as he's trying to set an edge, can you imagine him putting those big paws on a left tackle or tackle, just holding them still while he sets the edge?
Yeah.
I look at that guy and I just think to myself, man, he would be one heck of a defensive end.
Yeah, that's the first one you've mentioned I didn't have, and the reason I didn't have him is his body. Um, I don't know if at defensive end, I don't know if he could carry the weight required because at 225 he's blown off the ball.
Oh,
At 6'7", 225, and I don't know with the lower body injuries he's had,
yeah,
and a lot of them are not. They're kind of weird injuries. It's not like from
freak.
jumping and stuff. It's
Yeah,
freakish like type of like the quad was weird. What was that? And so to me, I think like could his body handle that weight? And that's why I didn't put him on there. But in terms of athleticism, his hands, you got to put him about his hands. He should have been a pitcher. He'd be like Pedro throwing a changeup at those things, man. I mean, the ball would be so far sunk back you couldn't even see the ball.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and not to mention 6'7's intimidating from Randy Johnson. Holy smokes! Um, cool. So that was an interesting one. So we're at 15.
Mhm.
So I got three more guys. I got to see if I can pick guys that you don't have. I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna throw out Draymond Green. You might have had Draymond too on there,
Mm-mm.
but I could see Draymond's a guy I could see as like a defensive end. He's a thug, right? He's dirty. He does a little bit of dirty stuff. Gets on your nerves. He's thick too, and he's only 6'6", 6'7", maybe a little 6'7". But he's a big dude. And again, if he watch him when he's out for an extended period of time and he comes back, he's heavy.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? So he carries the weight,
yeah,
and I could see him. I could see him wreaking havoc as a defensive end. He also could potentially be offensive tackle too, I guess, because he has great footwork. But just his mentality is more of like a defensive end to me. He's more of I want to hit you versus I played offensive line. When you're pass blocking, you're not hitting,
yeah,
right? You don't want to because you get your head over and you get beat easy. So you got to sit back, and that's not as fun. Run blocking is always more fun as a lineman. So he could be an offensive tackle in like a for Derrick Henry or something like that, where you just run the ball, 50 times a game. But yeah, man, I had Draymond Green. The right mentality. He's got that edge. He'd probably get you some personal fouls,
hmm
um, undoubtedly. Um, Ndamukong Suh style, stepping on people's nuts and stuff like that. But yeah, man, I had Draymond.
So the reason I didn't have him is I remember years back when he went out and they let him pad up and play at Michigan State's spring football game, and I just can't get the image out of my head. A cornerback just jam him up. I mean, he couldn't even get off the line. He was trying to play receiver, which was ridiculous for him because
Mm,
he's not extremely athletic. I think he's more of a smart basketball player than he is,
mhm.
extremely
Yeah.
athletic. So I just remember seeing that corner just jam him up, and it just stuck in my head. But hey, if at 10 years old, if he decided he was going to play football, he would have had more ideas of leverage and things like that.
Mm,
So I like that. I like that. My so I told you I'm going shopping for defensive ends, right?
mhm,
So uh going to the Eastern Conference, Bam Adebayo. So they listed as 6'9", I think more like 6'8".
I think he's 6'9", man. Because
6'9".
he ain't got no hair. And he's got a pointy head, man.
He does. He's got the cone. Uh, obviously he was a 5-star recruit. As a kid, he started out playing soccer. He's of Nigerian descent. And 6'9", 255 pounds. Defensive mindset, long arms, uh,
Good footwork too.
great footwork, great lateral quickness. Yeah, a little tall, but hey, Ed Too Tall Jones was about 6'9" as well. There's been a few defensive ends that were in that 6'8", 6'9" range. Um, but I look at his athleticism and feet and everything and hands, and I thought he'd make a good defensive end.
That's a pretty good one. I didn't really think of Bam. I feel like he's too long for football. But you make a good point. I mean, there have been a couple guys big like that.
I think right now, what are we
Uh,
at? 16?
we're at 17. This is going to be 18. So I got two more. You got one more. So I'm going to go with Ja,
Okay, yeah, 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 yeah.
slot receiver
That's
or one of those hybrid where you get him the ball, you
yeah,
get him the ball,
yeah,
jet sweeps. You can put him in the backfield with other running backs and pitch him the ball. Get him the ball in the open field. That dude is so quick. His
yes,
first step quickness is and the explosiveness. Um, he gets in the open field, he's gone.
yeah,
You're not catching him. Uh, so they call him in high school in the recruiting, right? Athlete. That's what he is. Athlete is where you want to put him. You man, play him both ways, man. Put him at defense, put him at corner too. Just go and try and pick a pass off or something. Can't return kicks. I mean, he's a do it all type of offensive player. Um, I don't know if he could throw. You could probably do some trick plays where he could throw the ball. You know, I mean, but yeah, I mean, I had to include John Morant before I'm done, man, because to me he's a no brainer. Um, again one of those guys that the athleticism is otherworldly to
yes.
like any sport he wants to play because of his athleticism, he's got it.
It's so funny to me that he ended up at Murray State. Um, was lightly recruited out of high school, and I wonder why that is because I mean he did the AAU circuit at one point. Him
Hmm.
and Zion, I think once one season they played on the same AAU team. They're both from South Carolina. Um, you look at him, you look at how he runs, you look at how he jumps, and
Well,
it,
I think he was like five. Was he 5'8" or 5'9" when he graduated high school?
okay, that's
I
so
think he was really short.
he was a late bloomer as far as the Grizzlies.
Yeah, I think so. I might be wrong. I have
That
to do a little research on it, but I think he was smaller because he's like 6'2". I
yeah,
think he's listed 6'2".
yeah, that would make sense. But I'm right there with you. I looked at him and I said, man, that dude is a slot receiver. Like you just want to get him in open space.
Bubble screens.
Anything, yeah.
Take it. Here, go.
Now, so this then for me, this will be my last one because we're doing 20. I've got other ones, and like I said, we'll name our honorable mentions.
Hmm.
We're done, but it's. I mean, he is still technically on a roster. He's not what he used to be, but Derrick Rose.
Hmm.
I mean, am I crazy to see a running back?
No, no, no. So he to me was him and Russell Westbrook were similar in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Russell Westbrook was more reckless abandon.
Hmm.
Derrick Rose was a little bit more controlled and was more skilled. He was a better shooter. Um, he turned the ball over quite a bit too, but not like Russ did because he was in control a little bit more. So yeah, I had Derrick Rose as a running back too. I was waiting for you to pick him, man.
And
Um,
his
I was
athleticism.
going to pick him next if you didn't pick him, but yeah, he the guy his athleticism before he hurt his knee
Yeah.
was uh, God. Him and Russell Westbrook are probably the two most pure athletic point guards to ever play.
I think Derrick Rose is obviously when we talk about this is pre-injury, but
Mm.
I believe Derrick Rose is the second best athlete that that's been on a basketball court in the last 25 years.
So behind who? LeBron?
Yeah, I mean, and this isn't like a GOAT debate thing. I think George is the greatest of all time, but I don't think anybody can argue the last 25
Oh
years.
yeah.
Yeah, but I think Derrick Rose has an argument for the second. I mean,
I,
he's especially
I think it's between him and Russ. Like I said, I think
yeah,
Rose was more skilled though.
yeah,
You know, he was a better shooter.
yeah,
And again, he was more of a controlled athletic. Russell Westbrook was just a
chaotic.
bat out of hell, man. Exactly. You don't. It could have worked out good. It could not. But it was fun to watch, and you never had to question that man's energy. He was bringing it. All right, so that means I go last. Oh man, there's so many guys
So many,
on you.
right?
Do I pick the guy that played college football?
I mean, you could.
I mean, do I pick a guy that played college football, but he's really not very good at basketball, but he's in the NBA, and he tried out for the Bills and didn't make it? Um, I'm not gonna do that.
Okay,
Instead, I'm gonna go with Gary Payton the second.
that's a good one. That's a good one.
And again, just the physical athleticism, the defensive prowess, the footwork it takes to be an elite perimeter defender, a, a defensive player, a corner probably. Again, he'd be a big corner, physical because he's fast.
Yeah,
Like I said, Pat Bev straight line. I don't know how fast he is. Gary Payton the second is fast,
yeah,
and so I could see him playing corner. And he'd be a big corner, physical corner, but then also have the speed. And because of his length, even if you beat him by a step, his length makes up for it. I think he would have been a real good corner if he decided to do that. If his dad didn't play in the NBA,
mhm,
he might have went that way.
yeah.
You know, but I mean, it worked out good. He's made quite a bit of money, believe it or not,
I
for a
think
guy that can't shoot.
yeah, got a ring, right?
Uh, got a couple. I think he got 2 rings. Um, and then went and signed that big contract with Portland. So
Yeah,
he won a ring. I think he went and signed a big contract with Portland. Ended up getting back to Golden State, winning again.
yeah.
But yeah, so I'd Gary Payton the second.
That's a good one. That's good. So that's the 20. And now
Mm-hmm.
we because there were some that I chose that you didn't or thought of that you didn't. There were some you thought of that I didn't, which leaves us with quite a bit of honorable mentions. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I know for me, these are the people who were left on my list. I had Eric Gordon, 6'3", 215 pounds. Big,
Who?
Eric Gordon,
Oh, Eric Gordon. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
shooting guard. Big sturdy kid. He's not a kid. Big sturdy guy. And I just look at him and I see football player with athletic shooting guard, a lot more athletic when he was younger.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, had Donovan Mitchell, Spider Man,
Mm-hmm.
Cade Cunningham. Look at Cade Cunningham and look at his size, 6'6", 220. And actually in doing the little bit of homework on him, he was a really good youth quarterback. And his older brother played college basketball, and that made him gravitate towards basketball. I had Jalen Green.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you got to imagine the guy 6'4", 186, 5-star recruit out of
And
Fresno, California. With his athleticism, you have to find someplace on the football field to play him. Drew Holiday, defensive minded guy. Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson looks more like a running back probably than he does a basketball player, right? Um, DeMar DeRozan. And DeMar DeRozan. And two other guys that I think PJ Tucker and Rui Hachimura.
okay,
So you figure,
interesting.
yeah, with their sizes and PJ Tucker with his mindset, there's got to be a place to put him on a football field. And Rui Hachimura, he's a big guy.
He's
You're,
big. He's like 6'8". Yeah.
I mean, but he's big.
Mm,
Um, I've seen him stand next to LeBron on the court, and I'm like, he's not that much smaller than LeBron.
yeah.
Yeah. So, what about you?
So that's interesting. I had none of them except PJ Tucker.
Talk to me. Talk to me.
Yeah. So I had PJ Tucker. Same reasons you mentioned. The guy's a bull.
Yeah.
I mean, I for me, I don't know if I'd put him at offensive tackle or defensive end. Just because his mentality is kind of like a protector,
Yeah.
where
Fullback.
offensive tackle, nah, too tall. You don't want to put
Yeah.
a fullback. He don't got hands to catch the ball.
Yeah.
My other guys, I had Taylor Horton Tucker.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. So again, real athletic.
Yeah.
Again, he's on defense because he can't handle the ball. The guy I was talking about that played tight end in football, played tight end at Baylor. His name's Ish Wainwright.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you look at him, he looks like a football player. He does not look like a basketball player. I had Davion Mitchell for the Kings, lockdown defender, and he would be a corner. He's like 6'1", 185. He's a perfect size for a corner, actually, as is.
Yeah.
And then I had James Johnson.
Okay.
Dude.
You don't want to fight him.
No.
Yeah. No.
Again, I don't know where I'm putting him, but I'm figuring where do I need him because I feel like he could play any position I asked him to.
Yeah.
And then the last two I'm going to mention, one is Kevin Love.
Okay.
So Kevin Love has amazing footwork, amazing hands, and a great arm. And I'm like, you know what? Younger Kevin Love was a little chunky. Put him at offensive tackle, let him block. Older Kevin Love is fit. He runs on sand. Put him at quarterback because he's got a gun and he's accurate.
Yes.
And he's 6'8", so he's not going to have a problem seeing over the line of scrimmage. So Kevin Love was an interesting one, but he was on my honorable mention anyway because I was like, I don't know. And then the last one, just because of his mentality, I want him on my team. And I'm going to play him both ways. I'm going to play him as my right tackle because I don't think he's going to be a great pass blocker. He'll be a better run blocker. And I'm going to put him as defensive tackle, maybe middle linebacker, just for the heck of it. Steven Adams.
That guy.
Steven Adams. Look, you're not messing with that dude.
No.
You're not messing with him. And he's got long arms. I could see him, honestly, as a again, he's 7 foot. So he ain't playing the NFL. But I just had to mention him because of come on. Steven Adams is a football player. He's rugby. He's a rugby player.
Yeah.
That's playing basketball. But yeah, I mean, this was pretty good. We had a lot of the same guys. I think we had a lot of the same mindset. It takes a certain mentality, I think, to play football. Certain skill sets. They're different skills. They're all athletes.
Yeah.
And the athleticism it takes to play one sport to play another, it's different. Some things carry over, like Hakeem Olajuwon, right, was a soccer player. Steve Nash was a soccer player. And then you see what they do with their footwork. Hakeem is a master in the post.
Oh, yeah.
The footwork he had in the post is as good as anybody, if not better. And so certain things do kind of cross over. But I do think more NBA players could play NFL than vice versa.
Oh, yeah.
If only because of size.
Yeah.
The size difference that you need in the NBA there's just not that size in the NFL, height wise, and so I do think that there's more guys that they probably play both, and they're tall,
Mhm.
so then they gravitate towards the NBA, and I think a lot of them do that, and especially when they're younger, they're taller. If you're 6'4", you're tall for most people,
Yeah.
so you're always one of the taller guys. So you gravitate towards basketball, and basketball you can play by yourself. The taller you are, it's a little bit easier. The basket's closer to you. Where football, there's a lot of different positions. It's hard to can't really play by yourself.
Mhm.
You really need a bunch of guys to really play football. Basketball, you can play with two dudes, four guys, whatever. Um, but yeah, I think it's an interesting conversation when you really think about it. It is kind of, what does he mean? Like right now, they just stop and go to play, because the answer is no.
No.
But is it, do they have just the physical gifts that if they chose that route they could make it? Then the answer is probably well over 30.
Mhm. It's in a lot of it too. I think because I was actually interested in the fact that quite a bit of the guys that we picked are from California and Texas.
Mhm.
Now, California is such a massive state with so many things to do. Is you can see how guys don't get pigeonholed to do one specific thing. Now, Texas, I look at some of these guys in Texas, like I said, Kenneth Lofton Jr. and even like a Marcus Smart. He was a 5-star recruit, so at one point, I'm sure, I think he was like the number 3 shooting guard in the nation. I'm sure if the football coach tries to come to him and say, "Hey, son, why don't you play football?" The basketball coach was like, "Get away," But Texas, we know, football is life. So I'm surprised some of these guys, even like an Ant. Ant's from Georgia. Man, we're here in Georgia. Football is king here. Um, Again, some of these areas I could see how they would have ended up gravitating towards basketball. Basketball is huge in California, but it does determine where you're born as well. Because if you're born in more of some of these cold states, you probably will more go towards basketball because you can play that indoors, and which
Mhm.
means you can play it year round. But maybe so like a place like Florida, the best athletes I'm sure are going to play football. Unless you are in fact 7 feet tall. So there's a lot of different dynamics, and in doing the research too, a lot of these guys, their parents were basketball players. Their parents were basketball players, and on the college level, whether it be mom and dad, maybe it's just mom, and in some cases, dad played either pro basketball or minor league basketball, or a relative, very close relative played, at a high level of basketball. So there was that kind of influence as well. You know, um, this whole thing was just pretty interesting. I thought it was interesting, and I'm glad. I'm not happy that Austin Rivers is taking the beating that he's taken from all these former football players who are attacking him. But the topic itself, I thought was really interesting. I think it worked out to be a pretty good episode for us. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think it shows, we didn't talk about any of the players prior to this. So,
No.
our lists were new, and it's kind of crazy. We had the same number of of players, and the ones we chose to pick first were a lot of similar ones. Again, out of your 10 that you picked, I had 8. It's only 2 of them weren't on my list from the 10 that you stated. Um, so I think it's pretty crazy how we were kind of thinking along the same lines too. But it's an interesting conversation, um, and yeah, something different. Um, and the conversation is probably going to keep going on and on and on. People are going to argue this because there's really no way to ever know.
No.
There's no way to tell definitively unless these guys try to go do it, and they make too much money. They're not gonna do that. The teams would the owners would throw hell. That ain't happening.
You can make more money as the you know heck, what, eighth man on a roster than you can starting running back in the NFL as a star running back.
Hmm.
In the NFL.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's yeah, it's definitely it's not even close. And I mean anybody who has a legit chance to be a NBA player or even a very, very legit chance to be a major league player, unless you're, Kyler Murray, you're going to be the first pick in the draft as a quarterback. You're going to choose those sports over football because monetarily, it's just going to make way more sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I agree.
yeah. Well, that's going to conclude the episode. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here on this episode 7. We hope you were entertained. And, if we left anybody out that you think deserves to be on the list, put it in the comments. Let us know. Let us know what you agree with, what you disagree with. Your comments helps us a lot in terms of our videos, in terms of, even like the information or things you guys want to see. Let us know. Your feedback is appreciated. Your viewership is appreciated. So thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Guys, have a good one. Stay safe.